Good afternoon, sir. Can you see and hear us?
Thank you, I can, yes.
Mr. Hayward, I would like to move, please, to the question of your understanding of the Horizon system and Horizon system data. The Horizon IT system was introduced in the year 2000, by which time you had joined the security team, hadn't you?
Yes.
Do you recall being aware of Horizon's introduction?
In my early years in the security team, no, because my focus, as previously stated this morning, was from the physical side, the cash centre stroke, cash in transit operations. So I may have had an awareness, but not a great recollection or dealings with the Horizon system.
Does it follow from this that you weren't given any briefing or training relating to the Horizon system when you first joined the security team?
No.
When did you first become aware of the role which the Horizon system played in the investigation of discrepancies between the accounts and the physical holdings of cash and stock?
I couldn't specify a particular moment in time because between 2000 and 2008 I was undertaking various tasks. It would probably be to the latter time of that period, as noted in my witness statement towards the back end of 2008.
Did you ever have any briefing or training on the operation of the Horizon system?
No.
At any point before your departure from the post office, were you briefed on how the Horizon system and its audit data might be interrogated to inform investigation of sub-postmasters and others?
From recollection, I had what I would term was an overview. So in terms of how the system operated, how information was derived from the various sources, that would form part of the fraud risk programme activity. But I would state that there were those individuals that sat beneath me or reported that were far more experienced in those fields, and therefore one didn't get involved in the finer detail.
You have said at paragraph 38 of your statement to the inquiry that analysing Horizon data was not within your specific remit and was undertaken by other members of the security team. Is that what you mean by others with greater experience?
Yes.
Were you ever involved in requesting data from Fujitsu?
Not personally, no.
At the time you worked in the security team, did you understand what audit record query data was?
I was aware of the terminology, but not the specifics of actually requesting it myself.
To your knowledge, was there any other type of material or evidence which was obtained by the security team in relation to prosecutions where an apparent shortfall had been identified apart from that ARQ data?
I was aware that there were other areas that could be interrogated. With regards to specific recollection, I can't. There was one system, Credence, but again, I don't have specific great knowledge of that. But there are other areas because the post office operated a number of systems, Horizon being the main one for the counter, but there are other data capturing areas. But again, through the fraud risk and fraud forum activities, that they were brought to the table by other parties.
It's right, isn't it, that when the criminal law team provided advice on prosecution, and you saw a number of instances of those legal memos, didn't you, when you were authorising prosecutions, that they would request confirmation of whether there was any material which might reasonably be capable of undermining the prosecution case or assisting the defence case, which had not already been disclosed. Do you remember that paragraph in the legal memos you were looking at?
I have a vague recollection, yes.
In practice, once the legal team had advised that there was sufficient evidence for a prosecution, did the security team carry out any further inquiries or investigations?
Unless requested to do so, not to my knowledge.
So unless the legal team requested you to do further inquiries or investigations, was the security team position that it was now for the legal team to deal with?
That was my understanding.
In relation to the occasions on which you authorised prosecutions, did you ever direct that further inquiries or investigations be carried out by your team after you received the request for authority to proceed?
Not that I can recall, no.
It may follow from your earlier answers, but were you ever trained on how to interpret or interrogate data obtained from Fujitsu?
Not in detail, no.
You say not in detail.
So I wasn't experienced in terms of looking at the data and being able to analyse it. There are those that did that in the first instance.
As far as you were aware, were there people within your team, that is security team investigators, who did have the level of technical skill to analyse the Fujitsu data?
I would, my observation would that the investigators would have that ability, yes.
Were you aware at any time that there were bugs, errors and defects in the Horizon system which could affect balancing and could therefore create accounting discrepancies?
From a personal perspective, I was never made aware in my time that there were bugs in the system. When there were challenges, it was the information technology IT teams that, in the initial instances, would investigate, or the comment that was often that came back was that any system, whatever walk of life, has issues that are fixed, but there were no, what one term and came out later, bugs that would affect the work undertaken.
To the extent that there were system issues with Horizon, which meant that sub-postmasters found balancing difficult, do you think it would have been helpful for all those teams we saw listed as stakeholders in the former sub-postmaster end-to-end debt review, that long list, to have been made aware of that?
With the benefit of hindsight, yes.
You say at paragraph 41 of your statement to the inquiry that challenges to the integrity of Horizon were not within your remit and were dealt with by the information security team. But you were aware of some such challenges when they came to light, weren't you, because you were involved in some correspondence about them?
Yes, so by that statement there, I mean that in terms of leading on the Horizon integrity issues, the information security team led on that. They would have made requests, as I've noted in one of the bundle emails, that information would have been requested to the investigations team, or the operations team rather, for information regarding any specific request of information, and that would have been given to an individual to make that request available.
Could we have on screen, please, POL 001 06867? This is a lengthy email chain, and the last email in which we can see here is on page 1, 3rd of March 2010. Could we go please to the last page in this document, page 28, to the first email in the chain, please? Scrolling down a little bit, please. This is an email from Andrew Daly to Jason Collins and Graham Brander, and it's copied to you, and it reads as follows. Jason, Graham, Andy called me and asked whether you guys, brackets Graham, if FIU have any cases in dispute, new issues that could affect your case, close brackets, could put together some stats on these cases where the accused defence is that the Horizon data is unreliable for any amount of reasons given by the accused. This should be sent to Ian within the next few days. Ian will need as much information as possible. Regards, Andrew. Is the Andy there you? You're copied into this email?
On the basis of those comments, I would say yes.
Do you recall this request?
Not in specific terms, no.
And looking at the date on this email here, does it assist you with when you first became aware of challenges to the integrity of Horizon?
In specific date terms, no, but obviously the date there in 2010, I would have been aware by nature of the email content.
Going please to page 1 of this document again. This is an email from Rob Wilson to Dave Posnett and Doug Evans, and copied to you, among others. Have you had a chance to read this email ahead of giving your evidence? It is one of the, I'm afraid, many documents that came to you in fairly recent times.
I would have read it. Whether I could digest and fully soak in all of the information is open to question, given the time permitted.
This email relates to whether an internal investigation into the integrity of Horizon would be disclosable in criminal proceedings where Horizon data was relied upon. It sets out Rob Wilson's view in relation to this. Did you have or express any views on this issue as a result of being copied into this email, as far as you're aware?
As far as I'm aware, no.
You have addressed your involvement in issues regarding Horizon integrity further at paragraph 47 of your statement to the inquiry. Could we have this on screen, please? Mr. Hayward's statement, which is WITN. Page 14, please. Scrolling a little further down, please, to paragraph 47. You're referring to a document there where you were made aware of issues raised regarding Horizon integrity, although I had no direct involvement in dealing with these matters from an operational IT perspective. This was being led by other teams within the business. As regards to the security team, updates were provided via the head of security, JS, is that John Scott?
It is.
In summary, these being that the Horizon integrity issues were being reviewed. From an investigation perspective, we were instructed by JS that any investigation case files that were subject to Horizon integrity challenges be passed to the criminal law team, Cartwright King, for review and decision on progression. JS also requested that all case files were passed to himself for personal review. I cannot recollect specific cases in relation to this. You have been provided with a number of emails ahead of giving your evidence, which show that you were copied in on a number of email chains about challenges to the integrity of the Horizon system. And you also appear to have attended at least one of the regular Horizon calls in August 2013. Has sight of these additional documents changed your evidence as set out in this paragraph at all?
No.
You say that updates on Horizon integrity were provided via the head of security, John Scott. From an investigation perspective, you say you were instructed by John Scott that any investigation case files subject of Horizon integrity challenges be passed to the criminal law team, Cartwright King, but also that John Scott requested that all case files be passed to him for personal review. Was this all case files or just those that relied on Horizon data?
On recollection, I do believe, although he would himself confirm this, that he saw all case files.
Mr. Hayward, we're coming to the end of the questions which I have for you. The last topic I wish to ask you about is the working environment within the security team. What was it like working in the security team?
Mindful of the inquiry, any walk of life, one's job can be said to be testing, stressful on occasions. From a personal viewpoint, I had a long career in the post office. It's not about me, this inquiry, but security team was a very testing environment by nature of the work, not just from a fraud perspective, but also from the physical side, because it was a 24/7 role. It didn't mean we worked 24/7, but burglars don't operate 9 to 5, so we operated around all times of day and night. It was an interesting role. In the latter part of my career, I would say in the last couple of years, it became a very testing, toxic environment within the security team. There was very much, for me, a command and control operation that worked. One, again, from a personal perspective, didn't challenge. If you did, it was probably frowned upon. That's a very broad brush set of statements to make, but that's from a personal perspective.
Had you had any concerns about the way that the security team operated, would you have felt able to raise them?
Not in terms of anything to do with Horizon integrity issues. That probably wasn't the means of my comments there. It was more about the way security team in general was run. My term command and control certainly came to the front more. One was always very conscious of one's career, and I mean that very, very pointedly, because if one raised certain challenge, you were very wary of where that would take you. So that, again, that is a broad brush statement, but I'm very conscious of individuals. So.
And where was this coming from?
For me personally, from the head of security, John Scott.
So those are all the questions that I have for Mr. Hayward. Do you have questions?
Well, not at the moment. Are there questions from anyone else?
There are questions from Ms. Page.
Right. Okay. Let's hear those first. Anyway.
Mr. Hayward, I appear for a number of sub-postmasters in this inquiry. What I'd like to ask about is the information that was collected from the forms that you were taken to in the zip files, because we saw a reference to the fact that information was put together for fraud risk purposes, and that was obviously your responsibility for a period of time, wasn't it?
Yes.
So presumably those various forms that were used and the data that was collected on them was collated for the purposes of analysing fraud risk.
Yes.
So presumably that also would have included the information about identification codes.
That was never evident in any of the information that we collected.
So are you saying that although you collated other evidence of information, data and so forth from those forms, There was never any evidence collated from the ID codes documents.
No, the evidence for reference in answer to your question was if a particular product or service that was offered by the post office was subject to activity. So, for example, postage labels, then information on branches and the levels of turnover of said item or product. That was the information that was gathered for analysis purposes and various activities thereafter.
When you were an investigator yourself and you were gathering information about identification, what did you do it with reference to?
I don't have particular knowledge nor recollection of those particular ID codes. As I stated previously, it was within a number of areas to collect information. What happened to that thereafter, I do not know and have no recollection of.
What number would you have used if you were investigating somebody who was white?
Based on what I've seen, it would be an ID code 1,
So how did you know that?
because I've seen it on this screen.
How did you know it at the time?
I can't recollect some years ago.
Is your lack of recollection of the ID codes convenient, Mr. Hayward?
No, it isn't. Absolutely not.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Anyone else?
No, sir. I think that's it from core participant questions.
There's just one line of short questions I want to ask Mr. Hayward to make sure that I'm understanding really the oral evidence you gave. Before the morning break, I think it was, counsel asked you whether it was normal for investigations of alleged criminal activity to result in criminal prosecution, all right?
Yes.
That may not be precisely how she put it, but I think that was the purport of what she had to say. And you said no, which perhaps wasn't the answer that she or even I was expecting. But be that as it may for the moment, you then went on to say that there might be, and I'm not holding you to these figures, so please understand that, say 250 investigations in 1 year, but only 50 prosecutions, all right?
Yes.
And you made it clear that that was an estimate and not precise. What I want to understand is, were you then talking about the complete number of investigations in a year and the complete number of prosecutions in a year as best you could? Or were you confining your answers to investigations about fraud in branches or theft in branches and those which ended up in prosecutions? Am I making myself clear?
Yes, sir. In reply to that, I would say, from my recollection, the 250 cases circa were investigation case files that were opened. I couldn't give you the specific details of X number of fraud cases versus other, but primarily, and that the...
So you were, just to shortcut it, you were trying to estimate the whole number of investigations of whatever type of criminality in 1 year.
Yes.
And similarly, in relation to prosecutions, were you attempting to assess the number of prosecutions in 1 year of whatever type, or was that more confined to fraud stroke theft in branches?
That would be the...
And I'll tell you, there's a reason for that, that we've been told in various, with various degrees of purported accuracy, that over the period between 2000 and 2013, there were approximately 700 people who may have been wrongly convicted of theft, false accounting. We're still to investigate that more fully, so please understand that.
Absolutely.
But that, as it happens, would equate to about 50 a year if you averaged it out, sort of thing.
Yes.
Again, I wanted to be clear what you were describing to me.
So, sir, again, my understanding was that of those 50, that covered the whole piece in terms of investigations, rather than the categorisation of where those investigations commenced.
Right, I'm with you. Thank you very much.
You.
Right, well, thank you very much for your witness statement, and thank you for answering a good many questions today. I'm grateful to you.
Thank you.
So that's it for today, Ms. Price?
Yes, sir. Commencing again at 10 tomorrow.
With
John Scott, sir.
yeah, I must have heard Mr. Scott's name on very many occasions today, and momentarily it went out of my head. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
See you in the morning.